I never had any complaints. The officers had an allotment for food of X amount of dollars, and you could spend as much of that or as little of that as you wanted on food. We generally spent about 2/3 of what the allotment was on food, and the balance why you would pocket as extra pay. That allowed you to have decent food. The officers, an officer went down and sampled mess deck food for every meal. And when I was called upon to do that, I never had a meal that I thought was bad. You hear a lot of bad things about it, and I think it's personal preferences or something like this. But the food was more than adequate. It was good. And, we tried hard to keep life aboard ship good. One occasion, we were in rough seas. I had 3 different areas that I ended up with quarters. And this one happened to be across from the executive officer. And there were 2 bunks there, an upper and a lower, and I'm in the lower bunk. And I'm in the middle of the night, and I'm young, and I'm very agile and things like this, and I don't need to put the guardrail up because of rough seas. I can say, you know, I'm invincible, if you will. The ship took a major roll to port. I found myself on top of the sink, which is on the other side, on the bulkhead away from the bunk. And by that time I'm awake, and by that time the ship was laying back the other way. The bottom of my legs hit the bottom of the bunk. My shoulders hit the top bunk. I doubled up in a V shape as I go back to the bulkhead. Back in first, I hit the bulkhead. I'm back in bed again. I put the railings up. I think the leadership roles and the relationships I had with my division and with the other officers on board ship, it was a great group of officers. There were no really dissension there. Of course, differences of opinion, but there's always your way, my way, and the Navy way, and the Navy way always won out on things like this. But good to be able to compromise, good to be able to have a chain of command, and as I got into an engineering world and later on a corporate world, it's had a foundation that I think was invaluable in my civilian careers after I left the Navy. I was a Lieutenant JG when I left the Norris at commissioned ensign, and when I was in the reserves for a couple of years after that, I achieved the rank of lieutenant in the reserves until I separated from the service after that was over with and transitioned during that period of time into civilian life. I committed to the Navy in 1955. Was with the Naval ROTC for 5 years before I was commissioned. Then I was spent 3 years on active duty, left active service, and was in the active reserves for another 2 years. At that point, why I left I did not leave the reserves. I went into, I moved. There wasn't a reserve nearby. I became inactive, and several years after that, I got a letter asking if I wanted to continue in the service or not. I chose at that point not to, and separated from the service.